This drawing tutorial is all about pattern and value. All you need is an ink pen or whatever material you have, a pencil will work, and a blank piece of paper. A ruler or a straight edge would be really helpful too. A Zentangle is a peaceful drawing technique using a tangle of repeated patterns. Check out Zentangle.com or their YouTube channel to learn about the 8 steps to their method and their background. I love that step 1 is gratitude and appreciation, which is the way I feel like every artwork should start. My drawing today is going to focus on mark making, pattern, and value. I'm going to start just with patterns and using my pen, and then I'm going to show you how to create value scales using several important mark making techniques such as hatching, cross-hatching, stippling, and even scribbling. Start by tracing your hand, and this will organize your paper so that you have sections to fill with pattern and value. I jumped right in with a pen, but it probably would be smarter to use a pencil. That way you can erase if you make a mistake. You certainly could stop here, oops, but I'm going to trace my hand several more times so I don't have so much white space. Don't be afraid to go off the page and only show some of your fingers. Be mindful of what hand gestures you put on your paper because some hand gestures mean certain things in certain places. So be creative with your hand placement, but think about what hand signals you are using. Once your paper is organized, it's time to start adding your patterns. Don't stress about how wobbly my lines are. I'm going to spend a lot of time going through and making sure that they're perfect. Inside each of my handprints, I'm going to divide it up into small sections so I can practice my mark making and my value. You certainly could put one pattern, texture, or mark making in each hand, but I think that's kind of overwhelming, and I like to add little small organized areas that I can practice my drawing. If you're using a smudgy pen like I am, you might want to bring some scratch paper and keep that under your palm so you don't smudge all of your hard work. You can look up any number of patterns and work to your comfort level. You can draw insane patterns that you have in your head from your imagination, or you can just Google basic patterns like stripes, checkerboards, polka dots. If you look up the Zentangle method, you can find really awesome structured patterns that have step-by-step guidelines. Whatever your comfort level is, just enjoy the drawing process. I love doing this style of doodling because I can put on my favorite TV show, some music, a podcast, and I could just do this all day. This is a great way to limit your screen time. So if you've been staring at your phone or staring at YouTube, take a break, draw something, and you can use images for guidelines, or you can just come up with it as you go. Use any material that you have. I've done so many Zentangles in the classroom using just a pencil so that we could focus on pattern and also shading. Colored pencils, whatever you have to draw with, just go with it. I'm using a pen for this because I'm going to do some shading and value techniques on my center hand to make it stand out. But first I'm going to finish just fun patterns in the hands that go off my page around my large hand. Let's slow things down a little bit and talk about value. Value is the lightness or darkness of an object, and I'm going to use my Sharpie pen to create a value scale using 5 different styles of value mark making in each of my fingertips. So I'm going to treat my center hand a little bit differently than the others. I shift my focus from just pattern and mark making to creating value with each of my sections. And I save the easiest for first, scribbling. Yes, scribble. And you're gonna start by making tighter, more overlapping scribbles on one side, and then you're gonna do less as you go to the end. So the idea of a value scale is that your darkest value is at one side and then your lightest value is at the other. The reason I started with the scribble is I feel like it's easier to control, and I didn't do a great job capturing a ton of value. I see maybe 1, 2, 3, maybe 4. So my goal is to get better every single time. Next up is hatching. Hatching or hatch marks are lines that go one direction, and to show value, you put more of them closer together on one side, and then as you extend in your shape, you put less lines with a bigger space in between. And so the darkness of the line and then the whiteness of the negative space should show value. I always find it easier to do darker values with hatching. I can go back and add as many lines as I'd like. What I'm not so great at is control. You can see it's a little awkward at the end of my finger there, but I will go back and try to fix it the best I can. I would put your darker lines on the one end and overlap gradually until you have the effect that you're going for. Next up is stippling, or the dots of insanity, which is what I like to call them. These are for sure the most time-consuming. Although the stippling is time-consuming, I find it's easier to control. There's small little dots all over the place. For me, the hatching is more difficult because it has to be a pretty straight line. I like to kind of fill in my whole space with a medium value, so that would be the dots that are spread out a little bit. You can see as I'm going towards the tip of the finger, I'm spreading them out more, and then I'm gonna go back and fill in more dots in a more concentrated area towards the left side of my finger. So the idea is it's gonna be darkest on the left and fade to the right. So overlapping is important, and getting it black at the very end is gonna make my value scale just pop. Now that you get the concept, let's speed things up a little bit. And now my personal favorite, cross-hatching. Similar to hatching, you start with your line going one direction, but then you get to cross. And for me, that makes all the difference. It's a little bit messier, it's easier to get darker, and if I make a mistake, I just cross on over it until it looks right. The more hatching and cross-hatching that you do, the darker your value is going to get. So as you extend from your value scale to your lighter and medium values, you're going to be using more space between your lines and you're going to cross less often. I always go back and add a few cross-hatching marks to my first value so it progressively gets darker. And there you can see it's so hard for me. I don't know why doing a straight line is so difficult, but I always am better at the darker, more intense values. Clean up those edges by thickening my outline. I have a finger left, so now I'm gonna freestyle. I'm repeating the letter M, that's right, M for Machado, and I'm going to repeat and make my M darker on the left, and then I'm gonna spread my M out with less or more negative space, so there's more white. So once I kind of have a map of like big to small, then I'm gonna go back and overlap to make it darker to lighter to get a true value scale of my M's for Miss Machado. I don't want to leave the rest of my hand just white, so I'm going to make little sections to practice more value scales, repeating some that I like, and then freestyling in some other ones. I really like the idea of the long arm. It kind of makes me think of tattoos or henna. And I think that would be a fun direction to go if I were to do this again, to like focus on tattoo patterns going up and down an arm. Craftsmanship is the time, care, and neatness and detail that an artist puts in their artwork. Going back, and I got a bigger Sharpie because I was a little overwhelmed doing this with my small one, going back and making sure that your hands and fingertips are really bold and your pattern outlines is just going to give this a clean and organized look. Okay, all done. That was super relaxing. I felt super focused, and I was able to practice my mark making and my pattern. There are as many ways to Zentangle as there are people on this planet, so take what you learned here and apply it to your own art. Don't forget to check out the official Zentangle website and YouTube channel for their step-by-step guide for their structured patterns. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe and check out my website, thatartteacher.com, for my full lesson plans, student examples, and rubrics.